Since Arsenal won the Premier League all those years ago, there's been a familiar question that's flown around the fan base for many years. Along the lines of, where's our next Patrick Vieira? Where's our next Thierry Henry? Where's our next Tony Adams? Who is our next Ashley Cole? And whilst I cannot emphasise enough, whilst we should not, and I am not making this kind of comparison to a player that is so young, the comparison has already been made. And that is a huge credit to just how good Myles Lewis-Skelly has been. At the age of 18, Lewis-Skelly has stepped into the Arsenal first team brilliantly, capping off his performances so far this season with a man of the match worthy performance against Manchester City on the weekend as the Gunners won 5-1. But who is this fresh-faced teenager that stepped up to the plate? And just what exactly makes him so good? Hello, my name is Ash, and if you're new to my channel, a like and subscribe at this early stage would be highly appreciated. Feel free to leave comments down below on my assessment of the player and any additional comments you want to make about the player yourself. But for now, let's get into who is Myles Lewis-Skelly. Myles Lewis-Skelly was handed his senior debut for Arsenal in September of 2024 away at Manchester City. Back then he was just 17 and the Gunners boss Arteta showed a lot of faith in him to come on in that game despite him being on a yellow card from the bench. He replaced an injured Jurriën Timber in the 90th minute. But let's start from the beginning. Myles Lewis-Skelly was born in the London borough in Southwark in 2006, joining the Arsenal Youth Academy at the age of 8 in 2015. He grew up and progressed with now current Arsenal teammate Ethan Wanyeri, with the pair going on to make their under-18s Arsenal debuts together. Lewis-Skelly was a big part of the Arsenal youth side that made that FA Youth Cup final in the 2022-23 season under Jack Wilshere. Despite losing to West Ham in the final, Lewis-Skelly was accredited with some inspirational performances. Back in the 5th round, a defensive midfield performance from Lewis-Skelly earned him his scholarship at the club, keeping him there for the next 2 years. And in fact, he has even more history against Manchester City, even scoring the winner against them in the semi-final of that tournament, with Jack Wilshere himself going on to say he has things that you cannot coach. On October 5th, 2023, Myles Lewis-Skelly was handed a professional contract by the Gunners at the age of just 17. Lewis-Skelly has also played at pretty much every level of England youth, including a call-up to the Under-17s European Championships in 2023. His debut back at the start of the season was a proud moment both for him and his family. Additionally, his mum's reaction to him making his debut in the Champions League was something special. He has now played 4 times in that European competition, including his first start against Monaco. So let's get into some stats then and find out a little bit more about his play style. As we've seen and heard highlighted about Myles Lewis-Skelly this season, he was originally a midfielder with the ability to play in the 6 or 8. Now, this is a little bit of a stretch, but arguably this trend first starts with Philipp Lahm at Bayern Munich, Pep Guardiola getting him to play that inverted centre mid role whilst also being a fullback. That then transitions over to the fullbacks at Manchester City. For some reason, the first player that comes to mind is actually Fabian Delph. You could also see that in Kyle Walker and Alexander Zinchenko, which also went to Arsenal alongside Arteta transitioning from being Pep's assistant to the manager of Arsenal. Now, these Arsenal sides that have contended for the titles over the recent years have heavily relied on this feature in their tactical setup. Zinchenko was probably the first one to really do it, and since then you've seen Ben White step into that midfield position and be fundamental for the team's build-up, and Myles Lewis-Skelly has the ability to do that. Full credit to Mikel Arteta for spotting that he can play that left-back role, but as I'm trying to say, it probably stems from Arteta's tactical influence and his overall philosophy on the game. Nevertheless, that's a huge credit to Myles Lewis-Skelly. It takes a player of immense confidence, ability on the ball and awareness to play that kind of position in a team. As we can see by the heat map, Myles Lewis-Skelly isn't just a fullback that is traditional and sticks by his centre-backs. He's inverting into that midfield slot and taking up a lot of those really promising positions in the central areas to help with build-up. And believe it or not, Myles Lewis-Skelly is also passing just as good as any strong midfielder in the Premier League. According to FBref, he's in the 99th percentile for pass completion, with a 92.6% pass completion rate. In terms of all of the Premier League players overall in the league, that ranks about 22nd out of every single player. Not too bad for an 18-year-old. But as we're going to get onto, he's also very strong in the tackle and actually riding those challenges away from opposition players. That's partially pointed out by the fact that he's in the 88th percentile for tackles per 90 with 2.75. Let's get into some in-game examples then and see with our own eyes just how much Myles Lewis-Skelly is performing well this season and how he's affecting this Arsenal side. Now, the first few examples are going to be from Arsenal's win in the league at home to Tottenham Hotspur this season. Lewis-Skelly starting in that left-back position. Now, just a bit of context for that game. He was interviewed by Ian Wright after it, to which he said that his grandma was in the crowd and watching. So he said he had to be strong in the tackle and show his grandma and put in a fearless performance for his grandma, which, yeah, pretty amazing stuff. You can see Myles Lewis-Skelly in this first incident, one-on-one with the Tottenham player. I believe that's Pedro Porro. But as we just move the scene onwards, the player actually gets away from Myles Lewis-Skelly. Down this right-hand side, the pass is played forward. He's about there in this scenario. Now, what I want you to pay attention with, at the start of this move, starts all the way up this pitch, about maybe 15 metres, 15 metres away from the halfway line. Now, Spurs progress the ball quite nicely up this right-hand side, but it's the movement and the energy from Myles Lewis-Skelly that I want to focus on here. So he's sprinting back, darting back. You've got Gabriel just inside. You've got Declan Rice closing down the player. But Myles Lewis-Skelly is determined to win that ball back. He already got past him in the first place. Now Sarr for Spurs is able to get away from Rice in the scenario. He's got a little pocket of space here, but Myles Lewis-Skelly is on the hunt. He gets closer and closer and puts in a very well-timed challenge to win the ball back, sit Sarr down, which was much to the delight of Arsenal fans, myself included, and gets that ball back into Arsenal possession. He sprinted arguably half the length of the pitch to win that ball back and doesn't stop there. Rice gets it back into his feet and he progresses the ball all the way back up the pitch for Arsenal, to the point where he actually lays that ball off for Trossard, and Arsenal get a decent little attack out of it. They didn't score from the scenario, but it just goes to show that Myles Lewis-Skelly is this player with an abundance of energy that's determined to win that ball back for the side and get the ball forward. A little example here that I found was actually showing Lewis-Skelly in the defensive phase. Thomas Partey unfortunately loses the ball for the Gunners and it puts Tottenham on the back foot. He's taken up this central role just in front of his two centre-backs here, and as the play progresses forward, he makes sure to cover this space in behind Gabriel for this following man here. But it's something about his confidence here in the defensive phase that struck quite nicely for me. As you can see, it's Dominic Solanke that's taking the shot on here, and Gabriel manages to get the block in, but Lewis-Skelly is determined on marking this space and covering his opposition defender. Now, there is a man completely free here, and I'm pretty sure Lewis-Skelly does spot that earlier on. He's aware that he's there, but he's just confident in his ability to actually win that ball back. Instead of being so hell-bent on marking that player and not letting him be free, why don't he actually close down the situation in the first place? And he does just that with another well-timed challenge to clear the ball for the Gunners. Okay, now you might have seen Mikel Arteta look a little bit frustrated with Myles Lewis-Skelly on the touchline at parts this season, and I don't think it's in too much of a bad way. He's just nervous for his team. He doesn't want to lose the ball, and that's because Lewis-Skelly has the tendency to try and beat a man and use his body, use his physical strength as well as his skill on the ball to get past his opponents. There was a post-match interview with Declan Rice. He said that Myles Lewis-Skelly had that Moussa Dembele attribute. He uses his body to shield the ball and then quickly changes direction to create himself space. And he's only 18, but he's shaping himself up against these, grown men, arguably. I'm not saying that Myles Lewis-Skelly isn't a grown man. He pretty much is at this stage. But in this situation here, he's up against Dragusin. I think he's on the ball on this left-hand side, and he's travelling with the ball inside. Dragusin just to the left of him, and they actually go shoulder to shoulder, but Lewis-Skelly has the strength and the composure to hold him off, actually bodying him out the way in the end, to the point where he's cut inside, created this space and found a pass through to Raheem Sterling. Now, Arsenal don't actually take quite advantage of this situation, but Sterling is arguably through on goal, and that came from Lewis-Skelly's faith and confidence on the ball to push away the opposition man and carry the ball forward. Okay, this is a really nice example of that Moussa Dembele trait that Declan Rice spoke about and that we spoke about earlier. Martin Odegaard was on the ball before and he's just played a pass into Myles Lewis-Skelly, who is taking up that inverted fullback position as we spoke about earlier. Lewis-Skelly is on the ball. This is against Monaco in the Champions League. As you can see with the scoreline, 0-0. Quite a little bit of a deadlock. Arsenal were playing well. They did deserve a goal. But this piece of skill from Myles Lewis-Skelly is what unlocks the game and how they score the opening goal of the match. He receives this ball with a player closing him down instantly. He doesn't have much time to react, but first of all, he shields it, takes it one step back towards goal before quickly using his body to shield the space between him and the opposition player and jink it the other way. This completely sends the Monaco player basically off shift. Myles Lewis-Skelly now has all this space to run into here and progress the ball forward. But he doesn't just play the simple pass and lay it off to the left. No, he actually tries to make an opportunity out of this. He's realised the space that's created and afforded his team, and he's going to use it, and he does just that. He spots Gabriel Jesus just up this top left flank here and plays a really nice pass in behind. Jesus then controls the ball. I don't have the picture here for the end of the move, but once Jesus controls this ball, he puts the ball in back post, and Bukayo Saka is on the end of it to score. A lot of the Arsenal players after this move straight over to Myles Lewis-Skelly to congratulate him for unlocking the game. There was a time in football when Calvin Phillips seemed like a player that was pretty strong on the ball and was actually doing this to opposition player, but in this scenario, unfortunately for him, he was on the receiving end of Myles Lewis-Skelly doing it to him. There's a loose ball that gets cleared by Ipswich Town whilst Arsenal are at home against them. The Myles Lewis-Skelly gets on the end of it. Calvin Phillips tracking him down. Lewis-Skelly has a little bit of time, allows the ball to just do what it's going to do, but uses his body really nicely to then jink it the other way and do the exact same thing to Calvin Phillips. Quite embarrassing for him, but a really quick and good change of direction for the youngster to get the ball back in Arsenal's favour. And now for the big moment. Arsenal just beat Man City 5-1 in the weekend. The first time they'd beaten them by that scoreline in the league since 2003. And Myles Lewis-Skelly grabbed that third goal. In doing so, celebrated with Erling Haaland's celebration. Now, there was a little bit of history between those two. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the last encounter at the end of the game, Lewis-Skelly's going over, I think, to defend Gabriel and Arteta in that scenario. And Haaland looks at him and says, "Who swears are you?" Basically questioning who Myles Lewis-Skelly is. And well, right now he's the guy that just scored the third goal against Erling Haaland's side and did his own celebration in front of him. Now I'm going to start the move by Myles Lewis-Skelly occupying this space here, as he does in quite a lot of games at the moment on this edge of the pitch, acting as that fellow number 8. You've got Thomas Partey here, Odegaard here, and Myles Lewis-Skelly just inside. It also allows Declan Rice to push higher up the pitch. Obviously, he's very good going forward as well, and that's what inverting Lewis-Skelly provides for this team, as does inverting other fullbacks throughout the years for Arsenal. But as you can see, quite clearly shaping up that midfield three to allow the Gunners to get more men forward. He picks up the ball on this left, and he's in a decent position here to arguably have the space to have a shot on goal, lay it off to Rice. In the end, he does lay it off to Rice, but the move kind of pacifies itself. And it ends up down here with Myles Lewis-Skelly in a relatively good position just around here. But he has John Stones just in front of him. John Stones arguably being one of the best Premier League defenders over the past decade. The amount of titles he's won, he's always been in this Manchester City side, never displaced despite the defender that they've signed. Ruben Diaz, Manuel Akanji, Nathan Ake arguably probably wasn't getting a look in on John Stones, but Gavardio getting pushed out to fullback as well. He's a very good defender, and we all know that. But Lewis-Skelly has the confidence and belief to take him on there. Rice spots him just inside, and it's the turn of direction that he does so quickly that really impresses me. He doesn't faff around. He could have held the ball on here, held onto it, and maybe passed it back into Partey for him to direct the attacking play. But he doesn't. He gets that ball and he turns himself and he turns towards goal. He has John Stones just in front of him. Poor John Stones on his own again, but it's then Myles Lewis-Skelly that has that shot on goal. Did take a deflection, but what a move to ultimately put Arsenal that distance ahead of Man City and win them the game. That has been my analysis of Arsenal youth product Myles Lewis-Skelly. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you're new to the channel, a like and subscribe would be highly appreciated at this stage. Obviously, I referenced that Ashley Cole comparison at the start. I really don't think we need to be throwing that name around with this player just yet. He's only 18 years of age. That's quite a hefty comparison considering some people regard Ashley Cole as the best left back ever. But Myles Lewis-Skelly certainly has the potential to have a fantastic career nonetheless. Let's just not mount too much pressure on him just yet. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video and the player. But for now, I'll see you next time.